Well, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Wednesday. I know you're surprised to see me, but today I wanted to just deal with you really quickly about a word that's been staying in me, on my mind, and it's triggers. A lot of times we have situations that we're trying to deal with, and there are things that continue to draw us back to them. Even though we know that sometimes they're not good for us, there are things that we need to get away from, but because we're not dealing with and keeping track of what the triggers are, we continually go back to them. So let's hit a couple things real quick. One, triggers, losing weight. What is it that draws you back to the foods? We all have a different meaning or a different situation that will draw us. I'm a stress eater. So if I'm stressed or if something just happened that maybe upset me, I might go and start eating something that I shouldn't. So my knowing why I would eat something that I shouldn't, then I have to, because I know that's one of my triggers, then I decide to have something else around. I decide at that time, okay, I'm not gonna eat this ice cream today because for one, I really don't want it. I know what this really is. So you have to keep track of what those triggers are. If you are an addict, you're trying to get over a habit of drinking. There are people who have been on the fence from drinking for a year, maybe even for smoking 3 months. That's a big deal because when you have a habit, it's hard to break. It takes consistent work at it. We know it's not easy. Nobody can tell you how to do it except for you. But you have to know what your triggers are, because things will come and situations will happen that will trigger you. Could be something in your marriage or the relationship you're in. Maybe it's the relationship you're in that's not necessarily good for you, that causes you to drink or causes you to go to smoking. Whatever it is, it could just be something about yourself. You have to know what those triggers are, so that you can keep yourself together when you are faced with that problem. Maybe it's a situation where you're in a relationship that you know is not good for you, but why is it that you keep going back when you know that this man or this woman has not been treating you well? What is the trigger? You need to know what the triggering fact is. Is it because maybe your mother left you, if it's a young man, or if it's a woman, that your father wasn't there, or low self-esteem? Whatever the issue is, we need to know what our triggers are. We have to deal with those triggers and heal ourselves from them, because if not, what they do is they continue to keep us going around and around on a merry-go-round. I talked about this merry-go-round before, and this merry-go-round will make you sick, and it's because you don't see the triggers. I try to school and instruct people many a times to write down things that are happening, your moods, your feelings. Good movie for it, Inside Out. We all have all kinds of feelings and emotions, but they're not all real. I mean, yes, you're going to be angry sometimes, you're going to be happy sometimes, you're going to have joy, you're going to have anxiety, all kinds of feelings. But we can't allow our feelings to rule us. So my feeling of stress, it will rule me if I allow it, because it is a trigger. I allow it to, and I start eating a whole pint of ice cream. Once I'm done, I'm upset with myself because I allowed the trigger to push me in a direction I didn't want to go. You have to get a hold. We have to get a hold of these triggers. We have to pinpoint them so that we can be successful. Our not knowing what our triggers are, really dealing with them, not necessarily pushing all your problems and the reason why it is on somebody else. Sometimes it's us. We got to deal with that. We have to deal with what our triggers are, because if we don't deal with them, then what they do is continually keep us in that downward motion. When you want to get up, you won't. Some people are afraid of success, so they won't try. Some people will revert back to when they come out of jail, they'll go back because they're afraid, and sometimes because it is hard out here. When you have a record, you can't get a job. But thankfully, there are people who are starting to hire and giving people second chances. But no matter what, you can't give up on yourself. You have to know what your triggers are. If you don't want to go this direction anymore, if you don't want to be in this bad relationship, if you don't want to be a drinker, if you don't want to be on drugs, if you don't want to, whatever that thing is, you have to know what your trigger is and start to deal with it. Because ultimately, you are in control. You are the master of your fate. You are the master of your soul. You are the one who has the power, with God's help, to overcome every trigger. You don't have to bow down to that thing. You don't have to, because what happens is when you do, A lot of times we go back and then we beat ourselves up because we did. Now, listen, you may do it. You may have actually done it today. You may have done it last night. You may have given into a trigger and gone back to something that you know you shouldn't be doing. But if you did, brush yourself off, get back up, don't succumb to it. Don't allow it to take over. But start to identify what your triggers were. Sit down and identify what it was that happened that brought you right to that point then. Identify it, fight back, and begin to walk in the other direction. You can overcome this. You can overcome it. Don't let your triggers, don't let those things that trigger you continue to keep holding you down. Fight. Fight back. Believe in you. You can do it. You can overcome. Identify your triggers, and when they come, fight them. Don't yield to them, but fight. Face those triggers, identify them, and overcome. Have a wonderful day.